All right. Here we are. Yep, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Lisa, I know you use Streamlabs. Does anybody else out there use Streamlabs? Does your um, side chat and everything work on Streamlabs? Because yeah, I can't make it hook up. So after I got off the stream last night, hey guys, how y'all doing? After I got off the stream last night, I felt so bad. I've screwed this up so many times that I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and it was like, oh, it seemed pretty straightforward. You click the start stream, you connect to YouTube, and then you hit the start stream button. And then it just does it, right? It's supposed to do it automatically. So I thought, oh, okay. So I don't know. I just, I can't get it to actually connect to Streamlabs itself. So like I'm looking at this screen and it looks really awesome, but like there's a live chat there there's nothing in it. It doesn't connect. So I have to have the actual, yeah, at least I think I might. Yeah, anyway, so at least we're here. Yeah, sorry, the owl's in the other room. I can go get him if we really want to. But so today I thought it would be nice to, I know I said last night on the stream that if people wanted me to, I'd go ahead and do another stream today. And I thought of what I could talk about, what would be interesting. Hey Theomaki, how are you? Sorry guys, as always, if you do have questions, please tag me, in the side chat, and I'll try to get to them. But I just thought, well, I guess I could talk about slavery, something new and exciting. Just kidding. I'm not going to talk about slavery. And then I thought about some other things I could talk about. And, one of the things that comes up a lot is like how to study a topic that's debated. Like how to study a difficult topic that's debated. So yeah, I really don't understand how this thing works. Like it's saying that there's some stream from 16 hours ago that's still... Lord have mercy. I don't know how this thing works. I'm sorry, everybody. Is anybody else seeing that? Because they're saying that there's a stream from a long time ago. Anyway, I'm not going to try to mess with it now. But, debated topics obviously are sort of what we live for here on YouTube. And a lot of people ask me, do you have a good introduction to this? Do you have is there a good survey maybe that takes a look at this particular topic or whatever? And I thought to myself, I wonder what it would be nice, I think, to I think it'd be nice to do something that shows you guys how okay, cool. Thank you, Lisa. To show you guys how when somebody asks me, hey, can you do some research into Numbers chapter 5, for example? How do I go about doing that? And, how are we trained to do it at, in grad school? And what's a good way that I think you guys, not you guys necessarily, but people that maybe aren't specialists in the field, how can you also effectively, okay, cool. Thank you guys. How can you guys effectively get into a topic, particularly one that's debated? So, of course, I'm going to stay in my field. So, if you ask me to get into, but you know what? These principles I think apply no matter what field you're talking about. So, I've got some notes here, and I actually talked to Megan just before the stream. She called to say goodnight. And Lisa Vertrue says Google Scholar. Yep, we'll talk about that in just a second. That's it. It's an okay starting point. Really is. But how do you do it? So if somebody says, I think that Numbers 5 talks about abortion, and somebody else says, no, Numbers 5 doesn't talk about abortion. How do you, as somebody that maybe isn't a specialist in the field, even if you are, go about, what's the process that you would go through to get to a place where you can say, I think that the majority of the scholars in the field would argue this, or here are the main points that are debated, and not only what is debated, but what are the data points that people are working with, and what are the different interpretive models that bring those data points together that are, debated among scholars. Something that you see that's, obviously slavery is one of the things that you guys have had experience with recently because of me. Sorry. But also, things like the Exodus, we're all working with the same data points. We're all working with the same evidence. It's just that people are interpreting that evidence differently. They are tying those data points together differently. So, what is the process before that? Anybody that writes on a topic, anybody that writes on or speaks about a topic of interest, and I think at whatever level, whatever depth that they want to talk about that topic. So if you're just doing like a book report, or you're giving you're reporting on it, or you're actually going to write a paper or give a presentation, whatever. What is the process that you go through to try to really understand what the data points are and how different people interpret them? How do you know that you're getting at reputable source material, reputable secondary literature? Now, my explanation here is going to assume that you don't work with, I'm going to keep it in my field for a minute. This would assume that you don't read Hebrew and Greek and Akkadian and Sumerian. You don't read ancient Near Eastern languages. So it's going to assume that. Now, if you do, you're still going to go through this process. I think there's going to be a lot more that you put onto it, and I'll talk about that briefly afterwards. And I thought, maybe it would also be good today to talk a little bit about what it's like, because I think these two things kind of go hand in hand. What it's like going through grad school. Oh, hey, Skylar, how are you? Skylar, thank you for saying that. He's a bit of a masochist. I got a message from him earlier. I was at a family event. And the message said, I'm in Jill's room, and Praise just came in, and we're discussing politics. And I thought, may God have mercy on your soul. Yeah. So, yes, he was, I listened to a little bit of it, maybe 10 minutes of it, and then I had to start this. But you're a better man than I am, Skylar. Somebody has to go into those rooms. I'm just glad it's not me. So, at any rate. But I thought it would be nice to talk about so quickly. Jonah Epstein asks, I missed the Lamentations book club and I haven't been able to watch it yet. I just want to know if you discussed Lamentations' place and genre of city laments during it. Yes, I did. Not in, great detail. There is there's a commentary on Lamentations. I'm blanking on who wrote it. But yeah, we do discuss some of the similarities and not so much theories about how there was interaction, how the lamentational genre entered into the biblical text. But yes, we do talk about that, Jonah. Oh, that was a lot of fun. And that's something else we could talk about. I'm just rattling off stuff now. We could talk about genre development at some point. But anyway, I think today we're primarily going to talk about how to do research, good research, into a debated topic. And then maybe I'll branch off a little bit at the end and talk a little bit about some of my experiences going through grad school. What it's like, if anybody's thinking about going to grad school, what to expect. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. And if you guys have questions about it, you can tag me in the side chat here and ask. But let's go through this first part here. How do we do good reputable scholarly research into a topic. Well, let's talk about some of the things that we don't want to do first, right? And not necessarily that we, let me say a bit of a caveat there. I remember teaching in seminary back in 2008, I think, and in the class, I remember asking the people to, I can't remember what it was, but write a short paper on something. And it's interesting how many people will go to Wikipedia or a similar source and cite it, and then they're done, right? They make their argument based on what Wikipedia says or what they got online, and that's it. Okay, so what do we do in those circumstances? Well, the paper goes back to the student, right? And we say, look, you can't Wikipedia is not secondary literature. When we talk about secondary literature, we're talking about peer-reviewed sources. That's primarily what we're talking about. Somebody writes a book, somebody writes an article, and that publication, before it goes to publication, that work goes to other people in the field, hopefully people that also share an expertise in the particular area of expertise, the particular field of the topic of the study. So if I write a paper on Old Testament slavery, I'm probably not going to send that for peer review to somebody who has a PhD in New Testament studies, because that's not. Nor would somebody that wrote a commentary on the book of Galatians send that manuscript to me for peer review. Obviously I can do some things with it, but that's not where my expertise lies. And so that's not, something that you want to do. That's not peer review. So peer review is, the point of peer review, of course, is to try to put your opinions through the ringer, right? Put your conclusions through the ringer. And that's good for you as a writer. It's good for you as a presenter. It's good for you as someone who's going to present this in a public way. And the reason is you won't look like an idiot, right? You don't want to I don't think anybody wants to look like an idiot. Now, I don't want to look like an idiot, right? I know it happens a lot. I know I've got a microphone here that is not the good microphone because I can't figure out how to hook it up. Side note, I went to Best Buy today and said, hey, you guys have any idea what to do with this? Because I can't figure out what it is. And they were like, no, we don't know. So I thought that made me feel a little better. But no, I just need, I'm sure if they saw the computer, they could figure out what it is. But at any rate. So you don't want to look like a moron. You don't want to go up there and say something that, what are the things that you can sound dumb about? One, you draw a conclusion that you consider to be new and exciting and something that nobody's thought about before. And then you present this thing publicly like, here are my conclusions. And this is why all you people have been wrong. And, a hand goes up in the audience and says, Johnson wrote about that back in 97. Did you read his article? And you go, so you don't want that to happen. You don't want somebody to write back and go, yeah, you haven't read through the secondary literature. That's bad news. And not just because you look dumb, right? Even though that's a motivating factor for many of us, that would be sufficient. You also want to make sure that you're arguing the best point that you can, right? We're trying to get to the truth, right? We're trying to get to the best interpretation that makes sense of the data. And so if you're looking to do that, you want to find out what people have written on this topic. So you want to read widely, and we're going to talk about that. That's the big thing to do in this circumstance. So, okay, so we don't want to just rely on Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia can be a great resource, and we're going to talk about how we can use it responsibly here in a few minutes. But, anybody can write Wikipedia articles, as I understand it. And you don't want to go, you would also think that academia.edu would be a great resource for those of you that are on academia. yes, it can be, right? Wikipedia articles can have great information, correct information. The problem is you can't know. And the same is true for academia. You can go up on academia and, download a paper that looks really good. It can talk about it, Sumerian analysis of, Enkin and Horsehog. You can go, oh my gosh, this must be great. And then you read it and you see, oh man, what a great argument. Yeah. And then you go, stand on that. And it turns out that person didn't know Sumerian. This happens quite a bit, by the way, in, things like the works of Skylar Fiction, as was pointed out in the side chat there by Theomaki. Thank you, Theomaki. So you can't, it's not a good idea to, Canadian scholarship requires good plaid shirts like the one Josh was wearing. Thank you. Yes. I probably didn't do that very well, but yeah, I love my plaid shirts. Right. You have to be very careful about the sources that you rely on as a non-specialist, right? So that's number one. You don't just want to, oh, cool. Skylar, I'd love for you to join, man. How do I do that? Oh, right. Zoom. That's how I do that. Tell you what, everybody hang on a second. Skylar's going to come in and, I think I can do that here. And I will see if I can continue to talk while I do this. So, we can use Wikipedia, but more as a starting point. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. You want to be able to use Wikipedia to try to find bibliographic sources, to try to get citations. Okay. So, invite, Gmail. Skylar, I'm going to email this to you. I think this will be good because it'll be good to Skylar's obviously a very intelligent guy, but he's not, he's non-specialist. So it'll be good to kind of, I just sent it to your Skylar Fiction show account, Skylar, and I might have to play with this for a second when you come in, but I think it should work okay. Let me go back to this, and then, sorry everybody, to that. And I'm going to have to put my headphones on. Sorry. Let me just tweak a little bit because I think things change when you bring somebody in. So I have to change this to headphones. Yes, good. And then when Skylar comes in, so let me see if that's working. It is working. Good. Okay. Sorry to let you have to go, Lisa. It was really great for you to come by, and I'll get up with Not Your Witness and ask him about Streamlabs. I think that'll be a good move. So, oh, and there is Skylar. Can you hear me, buddy? All right. Let me see. How do I? Oh, awesome. Let me see if that. Can you guys hear him? Oh, headphones. Yeah, say something, Skylar.
Hey, test. One,
yeah,
two,
okay. I think you're coming
all
through
right,
now.
we're good. Excellent.
All right, so I have to set up a source, everybody.
I'm sorry to do this to you in the middle of your show.
No, this is great. I appreciate.
Last minute, my wife ended up going to the grocery store by herself. I was like, hey, why don't you go to the grocery store? I was like, I'll keep with the kids so things don't go crazy. So you may hear them every once in a while, but I'll try to keep them at bay.
That'll be good. All right, and there you are. You are on camera. So let me edit you. Sorry, everybody. I know this is a little ad hoc. I guess ad hoc, but I got to put a filter in. So, Skylar, why don't you, while I do this,
yes, please,
tell the people about the wonderful conversation that you just had.
Oh, what? So, yeah. So today I was pretty bored, and I decided, I don't know why I decided to do this, but sometimes I get the itch to talk politics and not religion. And Jill, Jesus is Lord, was very, they say I'm a little bit loud, just by the way. Let me see. I'll talk a little low.
I'll turn it down just a second.
That's all right. So today, I saw Jill was having a conversation or a hangout about politics, and I decided to jump in. And I mean, it was in your normal train wreck where, I say something, Jill says what I said, completely misrepresents it,
That can't be right.
romance it, and then argues about something we're not even talking about for like an hour. He did eventually kick me, which it's fine. I was giving him a lot of shit and everything like that too. But yeah, it was a disaster. Praise and I am came in, and luckily I got out of there before he didn't really talk too much in the convo. But normal stuff like Jill not knowing when the civil rights era happened. Strange enough. I'm literally like, hey, when? Well, actually, that's in the new video today. If you haven't seen it, I uploaded a video on the Skylar Fiction show channel, and it was a piece from a couple weeks back when I decided to wander into Jill's channel and do some. Yeah, it's a stamp. Want to say hi to everybody? Come here. Say hello to the world. Let's get that toothpaste off your face. You don't look like a bum. You want to say hello to everybody?
Hi.
Hey. Oh, my son Skylar's wearing the Alaskan hat I got him. Want to say hello? Say what's up, everybody? All right, guys, go to and play, right? All right, go play. We do a live show. We do it live. Oh, anyways, it was pretty crazy, man, to say the least.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Skylar's video, I'm actually looking forward to seeing it myself. I was at a really cool family event today when it posted, so I haven't seen it yet. But Steve Bowden, how's his volume now? I've turned it down a little bit. It looks like we're roughly the same. So
yeah, it looks like everyone's. I don't think anybody's making comments about it anymore.
Cool. It's interesting. Every time you come in the room, I just feel more comfortable. I don't know why that is, Scott.
I bring a sense of safety, security.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Just in case somebody comes in and wants to debate, I could just go, just mute. That's fine. No, go ahead, Skylar.
I think you could do fine.
So what we were talking about is, as you probably heard, how to, when people come up with, I mean, you just went through this, right? People in a room clearly are not experts in a particular topic, and then somebody says, no, you're wrong about that. In fact, I just listened to, this is I think maybe even a better example. I just listened to your discussion again that you had with S.J. Thomason on your channel.
Mm-hmm.
And, there were a lot of times in that video where, for example, she said there is a study that was done by somebody out at Hebrew University in Jerusalem that, looked at 40,000 different people and interviewed or, surveyed them and asked them, she found out that, or the study discovered or determined shockingly that everybody wants to be benevolent. They think that's a good thing to be benevolent. And your response to that was, send me the article. Right. And I think that that's a step that, oddly enough, a lot of people don't take. Right. We just take what people say sort of at face value, which is, that's nice. It's a nice trusting thing to do. Mm-hmm. But there are more things that you can do when you that we all can do when we have to try to address arguments like this. So lots of debated stuff on here on YouTube. How do we go about sussing out what is a good argument, what's a bad argument, and what, in fact, are the arguments that are up for debate? So that's what we're talking about. And Skylar, I want you, because I'm going to be coming to this from a slightly different perspective in that, I've been trained a very specific way, how to go about doing this. But you may say that doesn't make sense to me, or can you clarify that a little bit more? It'd be nice, actually, I think, to have you in here to sort of, make sure I say this in a way that is understandable. So
no, you're all good.
So we've said the first thing that we want to be wary of is just relying on online resources, Wikipedia, Googling a topic, even things. People go to things like news sources or I can't think. Snopes, I think, is one.
Well, and you think about like this is modern day what people call research, right? Like I've done my research, which means I probably did a Google search on something. A couple of lines came up like titles of websites. I read the title, therefore I'm validated.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe even see a legitimate news organization. Maybe you see something like whatever news organization you feel is good, NPR or whatever. and like you see a title, you're like, oh, that agrees with me, but you don't bother to go read the article and read the details of it. I'll tell you this, Josh. One of the things that was hard, and I don't know necessarily hard, but something I had to really come to terms with, right? Especially in a political realm, because it's very easy where you can just take one side, like team blue, team red, whatever party it is, and then you just basically go to websites that validate the information that you already have, right? That support your own ideas. And it's really easy to do that. It's also real easy to overlook the bias on your own side. Right. So like sometimes it's important. Like I've gotten really frustrated lately with reading, political opinions that like in most situations would probably agree with me generally. But then when I really read the article and I start reading about what they're saying, like they do a lot with candidates where they'll misrepresent a candidate within a primary, right? In order because they have a candidate they like more. So like say we have, I don't want to get into the which party, whatever, that kind of stuff, but just the general idea though, is that like within your own party, your own political views, there is bias, and it's hard to overcome that because you agree with it in a sense, and you want it to be true, but you have to take that moment to see what are they trying to accomplish? Yeah. Right. Like, what's the point of this article? Is it just to inform? Yeah. Is it an opinion piece? Is it to try to get a message across? So I think that when you're getting at can be very complicated.
Yeah. I agree. And it's something that I really feel like people understand it in principle when you say it, but when you come to different sources of information, a lot of times we don't actually put that into practice. And so I think you're exactly right, understanding one's bias and really engaging with it. The other thing I think that we need to be very cognizant of is what we're trying to do when we research a debated topic. If we are just trying to find, data that confirms what we already believe, we're going down the wrong road. If you're just trying to win a debate, if that's all you're doing, you're just trying to score points against the other person, fine. I don't think that's a good idea, but nonetheless, that's a different goal, and so it can have a different course of action that you would take. But if you're doing research, particularly in this area, something like biblical studies, and you're really trying, this is a serious topic for a lot of people, and I think just serious in general. Your goal, our goal should be, let's get at the most, the best theory that we can come up with, the best interpretation that we can come up with that best accounts for the data points. So, all right. So we've looked at not strictly relying on online resources, on YouTube videos. Even if the person sounds like they, have really done their research, there are a lot of people that write blog posts that really don't know. And I saw this when I started looking into the slavery discussion. I kind of wanted to know what people were debating in the YouTube arena. And actually, to take it out of slavery for a second, when I was researching Ezekiel 26 with the prophecy against Tyre, because this wasn't something that was really debated in in scholarly circles in this way, I actually had to go looking for what is it that's being debated here on YouTube or in social media. And so that's one way to go about doing this, to try to get the lay of the land. But you don't want to build arguments based on that data. So, all right. So how do we go about doing this? Well, I think there are three things that you need to do, and I've got 3 points and then a bunch of subpoints underneath of them. So somebody criticized me in one of my videos for rambling on without any real structure, and so I actually have an outline sitting here in front of me that I put together for today. So, 1, we want to determine who the experts are in the field on that particular topic, and that goes for anything. We're going to stick to biblical studies, ancient Near Eastern stuff here, but because that's what I know. But we want to determine in any field, be it biology, evolution. You Skyler did a debate or a discussion with Matt Powell a little while back, a second one, and I remember watching that one recently, maybe a week ago. And I've been going back through your videos, by the way, going to and from work. They're very enjoyable. If you haven't subscribed to Skylar's channel, please go do so now and then come back.
Josh is so nice. You were way too nice to me.
No, they're a lot of fun. But you were having this discussion with Matt, And he was saying things like, ah, yes, the first and second laws of thermodynamics, and obviously we know that this can't, be the case that something comes from nothing. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, you have absolutely no training in this
No.
whatsoever. And then you asked him, so how many courses have you taken in this? Well, I've taken 2 basic biology courses. It's like, well, yeah. So you know exactly Jack but at any rate,
Or
so
throwing statistics. Remember, he threw a statistic. He gave me some kind of random statistic. And I was, where do you get this statistic?
I can't be expected to have every last statistic. I have thousands of statistics, and you can't expect me to have all of them right on hand. Well, how about the one that your entire case rests on? Can you have? How about you write that one down? God,
Oh
Lord. I'll have to plead ignorance on this, Skyler. I can go back and do. No, you can't, because you won't be able to find that website anymore because Google has changed its search options.
Yes,
God.
That's true. No, you're right. I agree with you. I agree with your first point that you find the people who are the best at it. You find the scholars that agree with you. Not agree with you. I'm sorry. You find the scholars who are the best at it. What I was going to say, my second thought was, and this may be on your list, and I'll see if it is I would say find people who disagree with you.
Yeah.
And find that and see how that information challenges your own thing.
Yep.
I had a conversation one time, a political debate one time with, I don't even really debate, but someone who wanted to correct me on some information. And a good friend of mine, sock account actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something on the women's wage gap. And I had all these statistics ready, like the stuff ready to go. And then when I pulled up, he knew it. He already knew which one I was going to go to. And I was like, oh. And he's like, well, let me tell you why this is all flawed. And precisely, he went through step by step, talked about what data wasn't correlated into this, what was going on. And at the end, I was like, I'm dead wrong. I'm just wrong on this issue. I looked at data that seemed on the surface to be correct. But when you dig a little deeper, you go to someone who doesn't necessarily share an opinion and can go to other sources. I learned a lot actually about that.
And even at this stage, and I really like sock accounts, so I'm not saying anything, but even he could be wrong, right? It depends on what research he did. Mm-hmm. And so he might be, let's take a really good recent example here. There was a Tech Times article that came out that, again, my expertise is in no way in evolutionary biology. But a Tech Times article came out that said something like all life came from was bottlenecked 200,000 years ago or something. It was roughly something like that. And I mean, they touted this thing out like it was the death knell to evolution, and it showed young Earth creationism to be the case. Well, it turns out, as I understand it, again, I just have no expertise in this. It turns out that the Tech Times article took a small piece of the actual article, the scholarly peer-reviewed article, misunderstood it, and then represented that article incorrectly. And then young Earth creationists took the Tech Times article, misunderstood it, and then created this entire argument based on just really shitty research. And so that's an example. This is what we want to guard against. We want to guard against taking popular level research that's been done, even in places that we think might be reputable sources, and not just hanging our hats on that and saying, well, this must be the case. So, and Skylar's absolutely right, and actually it's one of the things that you're going to see very, very quickly in this outline. So, point 1, determine who the experts are. 2, read an introductory entry in a book, introductory entry, that's really hard to say, or a book, introductory book on the topic. So, in something like, I'm trying to keep this in biblical studies because I think people know more about that than the other field, but I'll do a seriology also.
Forgive me if I disappear for a second.
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
Quiet, and whenever they're quiet, there's something.
Right. So there are lots of resources, for example, like John Collins wrote a recent new addition to a survey of the Old Testament text, right? He does a good introduction to the Old Testament text. Bart Ehrman has an introductory volume to the New Testament, and I'm not a New Testament scholar, so I'm just thinking of introductory texts. But you also have things like the Dictionary of the Old Testament, Pentateuch, Dictionary of the Old Testament. I think the Prophets is one. But these are the Dictionary of the Old Testament is sort of like an encyclopedia, in a sense. You have the Anchor Bible Dictionary, which is like an encyclopedia, in that you go to a particular topic, and peer-reviewed, reputable scholars are writing the entries in these volumes. Hey, Nick J. They're writing these entries in these books, and what they're doing is they're giving you an introduction to the topic, and they're going to talk about what the debated issues are. So here are the data points, and here's what's debated about them, and here are the basic interpretive models. It's not going to go into great detail. Generally speaking, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to see all of the different aspects of the various arguments. They're probably just going to be very general and say, here are the different positions. What is extraordinarily valuable about something like the Dictionary of the Old Testament or the Anchor Bible Dictionary is not only that they give you what the different arguments are, but they give you bibliography. And usually it's bibliography that's recent bibliography from when the article is written, and also those that deal with the major arguments. They're sort of the big players that are writing about this topic. That's a great place to start. Finding an introductory entry or book on the topic, and then finally going the extra step, because a lot of people will just stop there, going that extra step and reading actually the secondary literature, the peer-reviewed sources that are in the bibliography in that introductory volume. So in, let's say, the Anchor Bible Dictionary, Muhammad Dandamayev wrote the articles, two of the articles, Ancient Near East and Old Testament, on slavery, and he has bibliographic references throughout. He has a great article, and I mean, you could really read his article and generate a lot of arguments from it. But if you're going to be serious about it, what you want to do is then go to the text that he is citing. Read all of those passages, read all of the other peer-reviewed sources that he cites, look at the bibliography for those, and so on. So those are the big 3 points, and then we'll go into some of the details about them. Determine who the experts are, read an introductory article about it, and then look at that bibliography and read the secondary literature on it. So before we go into more detail, Skylar, how does that strike you? What do you think about that?
Totally unreasonable, Dr. Josh. I don't know where you get these ideas on how we're supposed to debate, but no, I'm just no, it was good. All right, let me get back to you.
Yeah, you're good. So let's talk a little bit about how to determine who the experts are in the field. And by the way, sorry, I'm just looking at. Oh, I see. That was not a response to me. Sorry, Nick J. You said you mean I waited for nothing, and I thought you were talking about us, but I think you were responding to the Raging Atheist. How you doing, Nakasuchi? So G-Man was a no-show on Modern Day Debate. Interesting. I'm shocked and or surprised. So
you know, he wrote me the other day.
G-Man did?
Yeah, I think he told me, he's like, if I pay him $50 or $100, he'll come on my channel. It's like I don't want you on my channel, dude.
I think I'd pay you $50 not to come on my channel.
Yeah, I think you would raise more money to support him not coming on. Oh, dude. He's a sad, strange individual.
He is.
I feel sad for James really more than anything, because like James is such a good dude. He takes the time to get these up.
Oh yeah.
Seriously, Modern Day Debate is a good channel, and they put it's a lot of work. People don't realize how much work it is to try to get a hold of different people, coordinate, get time scheduled, and then when you do the show, you're organizing, you're running it. And like when you set a date in a debate like that, and then you just no call, no show,
yeah,
like that's not cool.
I mean, you were showing me an email today about somebody that was supposed to do a debate with you on that channel, and
It's still, it's rough, but it's going to happen now. But the topic's going to be changed. So it wasn't to be about slavery, but the person thinks that you and I have too much similarities for our views. I don't know what the point was, but basically he doesn't want to debate that. So I was like, you know what? I was like, that's fine. I was like, give him a bunch of options. Like, why don't we debate, is Christ's death on the cross necessary? Or, and then basically we ended up deciding, and you guys are going to love this, my favorite topic. We just decided, is the biblical morality contradictory? Is God's morality contradictory? So that's where we ended up. We could have done something that probably would have fared him a lot better, but he doesn't want to debate slavery. So it's fine. I think we were going to debate the idea of, was slavery necessary through God or something like that, which would have been different from what you're debating, because you guys were debating the morality of Old Testament slavery. And that was what the debate was going to be. But it's difficult. But it will still be happening. But it looks like at the very end of June, sadly.
Well, there's we're going to talk about this actually in the third video response to What Do You Memes videos. We talk about this idea of, Paul Copan, and that's where I think a lot of people get this idea of God regulating slavery, keeping it as a maybe a necessary evil, and instead of breaking into the world and changing the system, breaking up the system.
I just realized the cup I was drinking. I forgot that I'm on camera the whole time. It's like my daughter's little emoji.
That's awesome.
I'm literally you have a good thought, and I'm being an asshole.
No, because I forgot what I was drinking from. I turned my swag on.
I can't see you. I have to look at the
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot. Sorry. The way that this is set up, everybody, is I know that you can see us both, and I can see Skyler because I'm looking at the main screen. But the way that this is set up, all he can, my camera won't work both in OBS and in the Zoom. So he's just looking at my amazing logo.
PH or DH. I always look at it as like it's a P because of the long.
Are you making fun of my wife's drawing? Is that what's going on here, Scott?
I'm saying your wife is probably wonderful at a lot of things. Oh man.
No, but we're gonna address that issue. Like, did God have to leave it as a necessary evil? Was that what he was doing? He was regulating it to make it better, or was there, did he have to do that? And so, tune in for that, because I think we addressed it reasonably well. So,
Paul Copeland is the Paul.
You muted.
There, I did. Paul Copeland is the one who wrote "God is not a moral monster." Right?
God is a moral monster. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that.
Is God a moral monster? Yeah. And just as a side note to everybody, as a little teaser, Skylar and I are working on a joint project where we are writing a book together. Hope that's okay that I said that out loud.
I'm excited, man. I love it. No, it's going to be. Do you want to tease them with the title of it, or you think we should save that?
I don't know. It's up to you.
Let's save it. Let's think about it a little longer. We'll save it. Well, a little tease, but Dr. Josh and I are writing a book together. It's going to be a little bit. It's going to take some time, but we will have it out for you guys to be able to enjoy, and hopefully you guys will like it.
I will say that it's the idea came from, the things that Skylar has been debating on YouTube now for 5 years.
Yeah.
As I was listening back through a lot of his videos, I thought, you know what, we could really write a book together. I think that would actually be a good popular level book that would be really effective, coming from both of our perspectives and adding both of our strengths, dealing with some of these issues of God's morality, and really, I think, in a sense, being a response to Paul Copan's book in a way. So stay tuned.
I think that's a good that's a good way to explain it. I think articulate it. Yeah, more to come, guys. Good stuff. We got a lot of good things coming in the future.
It's gonna be awesome. Okay, so let's talk about this. How do we determine who the experts are in the field? So the first thing that we can do is, as I said, take a look at a scholarly book on the topic and take a look at the bibliography. Now, I'm not necessarily saying read through the book. That might not be the best thing to do at this point, because again, you might be looking at several different books. But if you let's say you don't know anybody in the field. Let's say you don't, you can't get on YouTube and, tag me in a Twitter, or tag me in a Twitter feed or something and say, hey, I'm trying to work on numbers 5. Who should I be looking at? Let's say you can't do that. How do you go about doing this? Well, in biblical studies, for example, they have commentaries, lots of commentaries. And one of the things that you can do is go to a library, if you can, that has, a decent library that has a section on biblical studies, and just start picking up the books and looking at the bibliography. What names do you see coming up over and over again? Does the book look like it's a scholarly book? Is it, if you flip through it, does it have the Greek and the Hebrew in the text? Or does it look more popular level? The more scholarly it looks, the more foreign languages that you see, ancient foreign languages in it, it's a better indication that the book is more reputable. But if you continue to see a name coming up over and over again, if for example, if you're working in a seriology, you're going to see the name Miguel Seville coming up all the time, and because Miguel Seville is just a giant in the field. Nowadays, you'll see Paul Del Nero, Christopher Woods. These names are going to come up over and over again. Sorry, I felt like I needed to name 30 names just now, just so I didn't anger anybody that heard me. But everybody, I hope, will understand.
I had a couple. Why not?
But you'll see these names coming up over and over again, and that's usually a good indication that these are people that are reputable in the field, right? So look at the bibliography, see who's written on the topic. If you can, use a commentary. A commentary is a great place to start, because as you're going to see in the next point, this is one of the places that you can go to actually get a good handle on what the possible answers to the debated topic are. So you can also, this is the place that you can also, if you don't have immediate access to commentaries, you don't have immediate access to different articles, you also can, at this point, go to something like Google Scholar, Wikipedia, and type in, Numbers chapter 5 or something, and see what pops, see what comes up. Again, you have to be a little more cautious here, but you oftentimes can use Wikipedia for bibliographic resources. Again, you don't ever want to stop with Wikipedia or Google Scholar itself. You always want to press on, look at the bibliography, look at the citations. But those are good jumping off points. And again, I think if you can, confirm your findings. Confirm if you go look through a bunch of books and you find out, oh, Harold Attridge is coming up a lot for New Testament studies. I'm thinking about getting his commentary on the book of Hebrews. Run that by somebody that's in New Testament studies and see, hey, what do you think? But again, these are things that you kind of have to do if you don't know somebody in the field. So does that first point make sense? How to determine who the experts are in the field? So Skylar, let me ask you, if somebody said to you, Hebrews 11:1, that is not faith, blind faith. That's not blind faith. That's faith with evidence, right? It's evidential faith. And you say, man, I don't know. I need to figure out who the experts are in the field. What's one way, just from what we've talked about, that you might try to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the first thing I'm always going to do personally is I'm going to read it myself. First I'm going to do is read it. I'm going to see if there's some kind of basic translation, or is this something that's going to be more complicated, and we really need to break that down. Yeah, and then the next thing I would probably ask them. Depending on their position. If they have a claim that's of a specific position, I'm gonna be like, well, who are you quoting?
Mm-hmm.
Or is you quoting to back this up? Hopefully they can provide evidence. If they don't at that point, then like you said, then you can reach out and you can start doing a little bit of, you can go to the Google Scholar, not Google Scholar, what was the website?
Yeah, you said Wikipedia, Google Scholar, you got it.
Google Scholar, things like that. I mean, then you can further, if you want to go to a library, do further research like that. But a lot of times, what I find, what's interesting to me, Josh, and it's a little off topic, but it's the same idea, I guess, is that most of the time that when I have a debate or a conversation with somebody and we have a disagreement, I I rarely get actual things backed up by anything. It's mostly just, hey, this is what it is, right? Like there's not a lot of point to scholars. There's not a lot of quoting. There's not a lot of any of that. And that's kind of a letdown. I mean, it's better for people to come prepared for conversations. Like, I mean, it's one thing if you don't know what we're going to be talking about, but like if you're going to have a debate where you're talking about a specific topic, by that point you should be prepared. Yeah. And you should be ready to be able to offer, especially if you make claims, evidence to back up those claims as far as that goes.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because just as another, I don't know, warning maybe, I went onto Jay Pasik's channel last weekend maybe, and we had a discussion. If you haven't subbed to Jay's channel, do so. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun over there. But I went on and we talked about an article by Meredith Kline. And Meredith Kline wrote a 3-part article in the 50s talking about the hobby-roo. And we don't have to go into a lot of detail on this, but there's an identification of a type of, I don't want to say people group, but people were called hobby-roo, particularly in the 2nd millennium BCE. And there was this connection between the hobby-roo and slavery in Exodus 21. So that article by Meredith Kline was used by someone to argue for the connection between the hobby-roo and Exodus 21, which was done directly to say that I am incorrect in my conclusions about Exodus 21, which is fine, absolutely fine. So the problem is that if you read the article is kind of complex, but the article is actually arguing directly against what the person that was using it was saying. And so because they didn't take the time to really read through the article and digest it, and follow up, and make sure that they understood what the argument was, they were actually using it in a way that was very self-defeating, because we just went back through the article and said, look, it's not actually arguing for his position. He's arguing against it. So yeah, we want to be really careful. I think a lot of people cite sources. I think a lot of people quote articles and pull what do they call it, quote mining out of books. And unfortunately, when they do so, they don't understand the context in which that quote is written. And so they're actually so when somebody in a discussion about slavery quotes Raymond Westbrook to me, who is an ancient Near Eastern scholar, legal scholar, like it always is a red flag for me, because Raymond Westbrook is very much, if there's a side here, he's very much on my side, because he's a mainstream scholar, and he was an excellent scholar before he passed. At any rate, so yes, perfect.
Do you have like? Let me ask you, Josh, and I don't know if this is going off topic, but I'm actually just interested to hear from you on this. You've read some of these scholars and some research and stuff. Like, do you find any scholars that are very mainstream, very popular, that are terribly biased to their own positions, to where like they almost overlook a lot of evidence and other scholarly information?
No. Which is actually really reassuring, and I'll tell you.
A good thing, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'll tell you why. And there are a lot of people that heard me say that probably just now and thought, oh, or they will hear it in the next 5 seconds because of the delay, and they're going to say, oh, Josh doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I do. So you can shut up. No, I'm just kidding. But
like, I know what I'm talking about.
Here's the issue. A lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, there's like this big conspiracy, right, in liberal scholarship." I love hearing that, liberal scholarship.
Liberal scholarship.
And they all kind of like, there's this closed door meeting where we all come together and we say, "Okay, like we can't have this correct idea get out. So how do we spin this?" Like, that's such nonsense. The way that scholars get ahead, the way that scholars make their mark, researchers make their mark, the way that they ultimately get their prestige and if they can make their money and get better positions and all these things in the field is by disproving other people. That's what they do. So the idea that a group of scholars or that a scholar would like have this bias to the point that they would write something that they know is incorrect is completely fallacious, because what every other scholar in the field is going to do is rip them to shreds. They're going to say, oh, wrong, wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong, this wrong. It's one of this sort of self-correcting things, and I've heard this discussed in on online here in discussions about science. There's not this big conspiracy in science because scientists were they get ahead by destroying the arguments of other people. That's why we write book reviews. So
You're right. Well, the thing is, Josh, it's like there's this giant. I guess that's like the only thing they can do at that point, right?
Yeah.
When you provide people with facts, evidence, good arguments, well-researched documentation, the only thing they can do is disqualify the source and just say, hey, this is, liberal source, this is a biased source.
Yep.
And that's so not healthy. Out of you guys. That's so not healthy of a thing to do. So you have to be like, I guess it's just a form of what happens when you get to the bottom of the barrel. Because realistically, I think people who do that too, because people do that a lot in politics. I think when you get to that bottom of the barrel, these aren't people who are going to appreciate research or do research anyways.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're too emotional about it. Like, this is just how I feel. This is how I feel about the situation. So because I feel this way, this has got to be what it is. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what I would say ultimately about this sort of conspiracy idea is if you hold a position that is going against mainstream scholarship, I'm not saying that you're necessarily wrong. Nobody's saying that. What I will say, though, is put your theory to the test. Let me give you an example. I won't mention who this person is, but I know someone who over the years has had some very different ideas about the biblical text. And I've said to this person over and over again, I think it's, absolutely phenomenal the amount of time, that you put into researching these particular topics. And it's a tremendous amount of time. The problem is I think that the individual's wrong, very wrong. But they will put together hundreds and hundreds of pages of not very precise argumentation for their belief. And what I've said to them on a number of occasions is, look, I think you're wrong. Here are the reasons that I think that you're wrong. However, if you are convinced that you are correct, that's fine. Distill all of your hundreds and hundreds of pages into a very cogent 20-page article, right? Single-spaced, and then go present it to people in the field. Get some peer review. And actually, I think it's probably one of the things that we will ultimately do on this channel is have people that have, that might not be able to get their ideas in front of a formal peer review panel, to maybe do it here. We'll get some experts in the field, and the person will come on and present their paper, present their ideas, and we'll give an honest critique. But that's what we should be looking for, is honest critique. We want people that know what they're talking about to critique our work. And so I think that's actually extraordinarily important in this whole discussion. There is one more thing that I wanted to say about determining if someone is an expert in the field, and it keeps coming in and out of my mind, which is the one of the wonderful things about MS. And I actually, the more I try to think about it to remember it, the less I can remember it. It's one of the wonderful aspects of this. But one of the things that you can do is, damn it. Let me look at my list again.
It's all good.
It's so terrible. Look them up. Look up their CV, right? if they are writing, their CV is their curriculum vitae, their like their resume, their professional academic resume. If somebody is coming in and writing an article, making a very complex argument about Hebrews chapter 11, right? Faith in Hebrews chapter 11, and you look them up and they have a degree in psychology. They have a PhD in psychology. They don't have any New Testament background. They don't have any Greek. They don't have any, theological training. They might have a PhD, but are they an expert in the field? No. So, if in the same way, Dr. Josh, I could sit down and say, yes, I am Dr. Bowen, and let me tell you about evolution. And I could sound, probably, if I did some reading, I could probably sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about. But then you go do a little research into my background, and you say, I have a degree in ancient Near Eastern studies with a minor in Hebrew Bible. And it's like, oh, maybe Josh isn't the person we should be listening to about the evolutionary biology. So that's something else to do. Look them up and look at. I'll tell you. Sorry, to sort of round out what you said. I have seen some people in academia that will let their biases get in the way, in my opinion. Christians.
Hey, what is
I have seen that.
Is Ken Hovind? He's a doctor. Is he a doctor?
I don't know. I have heard that his PhD is either honorary or it is sort of a online PhD in the bad sense. I don't know that. I don't want to, I don't want to, say something that I don't definitively that I don't know about. But
let's see. I'm looking it up now as we speak. Now this is on Rational Wiki, so I mean this is the initial first thing I went to. Ken Hovind promotes himself as Dr. Ken Hovind or Dr. Dino. You got Skylar's thing on? Okay, I got you. I know. So let's see. I think he's got a. Says he has 4 doctorates, is what he said. The Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, delivered from the Latin. That's not what I want. Completed PhD average 8.2. No, that's not actually telling me anything. I'll get back to you. I don't see anything here. It's not. First, Hovind's dissertation was not publicly available. Hovind claims to have lost his copy of his dissertation, which I guess you need a dissertation in order to get the PhD, I would imagine. While Patriot Blue University doesn't have his dissertation.
So Brian Stevens
yeah.
just wrote in the side chat, I'll just quote him.
Please.
Kent has 3 PhDs from Patriot University. His dissertation starts with, quote, "Hi, my name is Kent Hovind."
You didn't hear him. You're laughing because I'm laughing.
That's not a good way to start a dissertation in case anybody is wondering. I think that would be akin to starting it. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Call me Ishmael. Right. So this is good. Looking up, somebody has a PhD. Look at where they got their PhD from. Look at what their PhD is in. These are very telling things. But I was going to say that I did say, I have seen some people that let what I consider to be their biases get in the way of actual really good scholarship that they do in other places in their research. I've seen this in the study of the Exodus. I've seen this in biblical studies. And again, it doesn't happen. It happens less than we would think, or that someone would think, but I have seen it get in the way. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, there are very few times that I see people in scholarship let that stuff get in the way. And even with the Christians that I'm thinking of, the one wonderful balancing thing is that our balancing mechanism that we have is that when these individuals, I think, let their biases get in the way of their research, other scholars call them out on it. It's just what they do. That's how this works. So yes, I mean, I think that I think it's actually a very good set of checks and balances that we have in scholarship. So, right. Okay. Well, that's point one. Determine who the experts are in the field in the particular topic. Once you do that, then you want to find an introductory book or an entry in maybe like an encyclopedic work that people that are experts in the field are writing on. And of course, the rationale here is that if you have an expert in the field who is writing an introductory entry or article or whatever, or even a book, even if it's a popular level book on the topic, then you have a really good chance of, one, getting the basics of the debated topic and what the main positions are, because they're going to be honest about what the main positions are, particularly the ones they don't agree with. And then two, they're going to give a really good bibliography. So I'm going to go get a book. Skyler, kind of give some feedback, if you don't mind, on if you can, while I go get this couple of books.
Yeah.
On
you'll get those couple of books. I'll be waiting here for you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll talk to the audience for just a moment.
Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm on Dr. Josh Rowan's channel, Digital Hammurabi. I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't listening to the last part that Josh was saying because my daughter was distracting me, and I was also looking at what's called, I shouldn't say it like that, this doesn't sound weird. They call it, how do you say it? I was looking at cool different showers that you can get for your rooms. Like, the kind of shower where you walk in and there's like water from this side, water from this side, water coming down. It's like the dream of mine to have one of those. Like, I want to walk in, I want to feel like I'm in a rainforest, right? Like as I'm taking like a nice warm shower, right? Water from all directions. I want to feel like a waterfall just hit me, and with some, like, maybe if I had some Irish Spring soap, like that would really like kind of add to it. So like imagine like me, a shower, water coming in all directions. I mean, I guess that's kind of weird asking you to imagine me in the shower.
This is an interesting thing to come back to.
I'm sorry.
I'm in the shower.
This is what you do.
Hi everybody. I'm Skylar Fiction.
We'll let the imagination. You can listen to the rest of it.
See my other channel.
I've seen my other channel. This is why I don't come on this channel that often. It's because I'm muddying up.
No, it's perfect.
This well.
53 people here. Why, picturing you in the shower. That's good. It's good.
This is what we need. This is what I want in life. And I hope all of you feel fulfilled after my anyway,
oh gosh. So I've talked a little bit about Raymond Westbrook, and again, I've actually talked about these books before. But if you identify somebody like Raymond Westbrook as a reputable scholar in the field, then if you go to something like this, Everyday Law in Biblical Israel, put together by Westbrook and Wells, this is a popular level book, right? It's meant for a broader audience. However, there's always a section, if you can see that, for further reading, right? There's always bibliographic information. There's always general reference works that should be consulted throughout. They're always talking about this sort of thing. And so this would be considered an introductory volume. And again, you can just see it's very thin. What is it, like 100, 150 pages? Yeah. But it's a really great first step. If you want to start looking into biblical law, this is a good place to go. However, you will see that Westbrook has a theory of law in the ancient Near East that is slightly different than what some other people have. So you would get perhaps, and you might even see it cited in the book, but you'll see other books. Here's an Introduction to Biblical Law by William Morrow. And again, it's a little thicker, but it's still an introductory volume. And again, you're going to see throughout, you have footnotes, right? You have citations. There's going to be a bibliography. And it's really important to get these good, solid, basic introductions with scholars that are, solid in the field. I mentioned, and I've shown this to you guys before, but I mentioned John Collins' book, Introduction to the Hebrew Bible. This is, I think it's 2017, 2018, but this is the third edition. But of course, John Collins, brilliant scholar, wrote in the Hermeneus series on the book of Daniel, and of course he's done a lot of work up at Yale. But brilliant Old Testament scholar, and yet this book, it's just an introduction to the Old Testament, right? So it's going to go through the Pentateuch. So if you wanted to look into, for example, the documentary hypothesis that we did a video on some time back, and what is it that people think about the documentary hypothesis? The old JEDP theory about the Pentateuch and how it was, written, how it was edited together. Is that a good way to think about this? Is there another way? That's a great place, because he's always going to, those types of books are always going to have an introduction that discusses the major ideas, generally speaking, their strengths and weaknesses, but they're not going to go into all of the detailed arguments. Kratz, in his theory of Pentateuch's formation, you're not going to see, the 500 pages or whatever that he has, where he argues his very detailed position, or gives a very detailed argument of his position. All you're going to see is this is the main position, and these are what I consider to be the strengths and weaknesses of it. So that's where you want to go. So you want to identify who the scholars are in the field, and then you want to see if they have these introductory books like this, or they have, again, in something like the Anchor Bible Dictionary, do they have an article that introduces it? If we're talking about a seriology, you have RLA, the Real Lexicon de la Seriologie, which is sort of our multi-volume encyclopedia. A lot of times it's in French and German, sorry, but these are works. Jeremy Black and Green put together a sort of dictionary on more popular level ancient Near Eastern Mesopotamian topics in alphabetical order, and so that's a good place to start. But these are things that you want to do. So identify the scholar, and then find an introductory, text, an introductory book where they give good introductory information, the main arguments, the main positions, and the main arguments for those positions, and then good bibliography, citations, places that you can go for further reading. These are the things that you're looking for in step 2. Skylar, how could I clarify that more?
I'll be honest with you. I kind of left the room for a couple minutes.
So it was perfect, is what you're saying. Like, it couldn't have been done any better.
God could not have done it better.
Excellent.
Like, we were putting you above God today.
I have to say, because I just listened to this stream, there was a part in that stream with SJ where you guys are talking about God's contradictory nature, and like in the middle of it, you kind of said something that I don't know if she felt like it backed her into a corner or what, but she said, "Well, you don't even believe in God, Skylar." And you were like, "What? What?" And you actually said that was a silly thing to say. I'm stepping into your worldview. It was really funny.
Oh my Lord! Yeah, that the debate is kind of lost. It's like, well, yeah. It's like that was kind of the point.
Oh gosh,
dude.
Yeah, it was.
I don't remember much of that conversation. I need to go through and watch the SJ. Oh, and we're setting up something to have you, SJ, and Jonathan Sheffield, I think is his name. Possibly I'll have a 2-on-2 debate. So that's coming up soon. We're trying to work out a date for that.
Yeah, I feel like I know that name.
I think he does art, or say he's a Christian, but I can't remember what he does. He may have like his own channel. I gotta look and see what's going on. He's a very nice guy from what I've heard. Everything I've interacted with him, he seems very, very nice. So.
Is he a New Testament guy? Is that where
he does animation? I think he does animation with the New Testament.
Oh,
okay.
An
apologist and animator, a Reformed Anglican. So
got it.
You don't want it? Okay, we'll put it right here. Thank you. So yeah, that will be coming up here soon. I should rewatch that. SJ is a very nice person, but one of the things she kind of like, she didn't want to talk about anything Old Testament. Like that was kind of that's one of the difficulties.
I do remember that.
And then
we
at
had
some
a,
point, like she called me out on it. We had to change topics.
yeah, you said, she said, hey, we agreed that we weren't going to go into the Old Testament.
I'm like, okay, I
Oh
guess we're
gosh.
going to the Old Testament. What are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I hear you.
Take him as I can.
No, it was good. It was a good talk.
It was a good talk.
One of the other things that you will see in just to sort of round out point 2 here before we move on to the last one. One of the things that you'll see in these, if it's a good introductory volume, is they'll kind of talk about the history of research. So I'm reading a book right now on apocalypse by John Collins, and he goes through, here's what all the people, essentially all the major people, have said about this discussion on apocalypse. So-and-so argued this, and here were his sort of main points. This person disagreed 5 years later, and here's what their main points were. That will situate you in the debate. It'll not only give you a good idea of what people have argued in the past, so that if you're treading on ground that has already been trodden, but you'll also be able to say, all right, here's where we have to go, because we've sort of moved through all of these debates. Maybe I need to revisit this position. Maybe I need to develop this position. Maybe we just need to leave it behind because it's been totally debunked. But yeah. Sorry, Skyler, I don't know if you're talking to us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to add, because there's something awesome that someone had finally pointed out to me. I never made the connection. You know who he sounds like?
Who?
Napoleon Dynamite. Do you know who Napoleon Dynamite is? You ever watch that movie?
I do whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
Yes, exactly. He's like, do boom. Like, that is totally Napoleon Dynamite. Like, I am tempted to take his audio and put it side by side with Napoleon Dynamite. I might get a copyright strike, but it's so tempting because homeboy is Napoleon Dynamite. Anyways, all right, sorry.
The hunting skills. Try and hit me, Napoleon. What? I said, come down here and see what happens if you try and hit me. Such an idiot. Let me see what your best move is.
He's like, I'm super serious. Things are getting kind of serious with this girl online.
Oh my gosh, that movie was so priceless. Did the chickens have large talons? What? Large talons? I don't know what you just said.
I saw that movie actually in the theater. I went like halfway across town. Like, it was literally like an hour away in Orlando, where I live. And I had heard about this movie, and I was like, I got to go see this. And I just went up there by myself, drove an hour, went and saw it. Was not disappointed. One of the funniest films out there. It's just so simple. It's just a simple little story about these two nerdy guys.
Yeah.
Well, mostly him, but his older brother is just as great. And what's his girlfriend? Shafonda? Is that his girlfriend?
LaFonda, yeah, LaFonda.
I love it. I love LaFonda. I love him. I love how he wears a gold chain at the end.
Why do you love me? Why do you need me? Always and forever. So Enkidu 5 says, with many exclamation points, dullard. Which is how he refers to that individual. And he says, this is going to be my response every time you use his voice, Dr. J. Yeah, Yami Yamizuki says my praise impression is not quite as good as my Hovind impression. I take that as a compliment, Yami Yamizuki. Thank you.
Yeah, you got really good. The thing is, Kevin Hovind's impression is amazing. They're both good, but Hovind is just.
Oh gosh!
I tell you, I have the dissertation up. Somebody had set it up. This is the supposed dissertation.
Oh, nice.
Funny, it does. That's a dedication page. So let me see if it actually. It does start with hello. My name is Ken Hovind.
I taught high school science for 15 years.
Hello, my name is Ken Hovind. I am a creation science evangelist. I live in Pensacola, Florida. I've been in high school. I've been a high school science teacher since 1976. I've been very active in the creation evolution controversy for quite some time. As an evangelist, God has given me the opportunity to preach and teach the wonderful story of his marvelous creation over 400 times each year to churches. Can I ask you a question? Would you, look, I'm terrible at grammar and everything like that, but in that sentence, would you write the number 400 instead of writing the word like 400 times? It seems odd for like a scholarly paper that you would just like. It's not referring to a specific. It doesn't seem like it's referring to a specific statistic. And then the other thing is like, I don't know how you can get away with paper where you write, "God has given me the opportunity to preach."
Is this the introduction? Is this like a what
this
is
is the introduction? So yeah, this is the introduction.
All right, I'm gonna read my introduction. If you guys want to see my dissertation, it's on our website, digitalhammurabi.com. It's free for download there. Here's my introduction. Assyriologists have surveyed and performed corpus-based analysis on collections of Sumerian and Akkadian tablets that have been excavated at various Mesopotamian cities, including but not limited to Nippur, Ur, Sippar, Isin, Uruk, and Larsa. A striking exception is the city of Kish, as was noted by Steve Tinney in 2011. The Kish texts, fragmentary and poorly published though they are perhaps the collection in most urgent need of proper scholarly treatment. So, slightly different, though maybe not better. I don't know. Maybe I should have opened with, "Hello, my name is Joshua Bowen, and I like the color red," or something. But
maybe something like this. In this book, I'll be covering, in a nutshell, the creation / evolution controversy. I will explain why it is so important, the effects that the theory of evolution had on our society, the creation alternative, and what we should do about the problem. I don't know what the problem is. There's no articulation of the problem. I'll try to answer the questions. The modern science as raised from a scriptural viewpoint.
Come on, somebody.
I am without apology. You should do this in your voice. Oh my God. Save that. Josh, we're going to do this. We're going to do it on my channel. We're going to have you read this, and we can do it here too. It doesn't matter.
Oh, no, that'd be great. That's much. I think that's much better for your channel.
We'll do that. We'll have you read his dissertation in your impression. Okay.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a much more serious channel, much more serious discussion.
That's what happens when I come by, folks. So I don't do it often.
All right, so let's move quickly on to
right here,
the third point. And what I would say when you found your expert and then you get a good introduction and you're reading through it, I would recommend, particularly if you're going to give a presentation or something on this, write a paper, do a video, whatever, take notes on the main points that are being discussed and the various positions that different people have held and do hold. So that's I think critical, because it will really help that you can refer back to those things when you are in a position to start moving into phase 3, which is reading the more, this is point 3, read the more specific secondary literature. So after you read through this book by Westbrook and Wells, which depending on how fast you read, could take you a day or something, you could, in theory, stop here, right? If you're just going to do like a general, here's what people think, I'm not making a specific argument for any of these positions, then that's probably far enough, right? In something like YouTube. So if I were going to say, hey, I want to talk about what people generally think about the dating of the book of Hosea, it probably would be sufficient, if I was pressed for time or something, to go to John Collins' introduction or go to a commentary on Hosea and just sort of summarize the main positions that people hold. But I think the moment that you step over that threshold into, now I'm going to argue for one of these positions, now you have to do point 3, in my opinion. If you don't do point 3, which is read the secondary literature that these people are using to create their introduction, then I think you're going to fall short and you're going to get embarrassed an awful lot when pressed. So how do you go about doing that? Well, when you read through these introductions, you'll see that they cite certain texts, certain books, monographs, articles over and over again. in the different resources. For example, if you read through slavery, if you look at the bibliography that I put together for slavery, and I've got a more detailed one coming out in the book that I'm putting together. My book will be a popular level introduction to slavery. It's a place that you could stop. It would be akin to this book. This is obviously going to be better in my opinion because Westbrook and Wells are just better than I am. But it's sort of akin to that. It's this popular level book that's going to have really good bibliographic resources and citations that I'm basing my introduction to the topic on. However, so I'm going to cite Westbrook. I'm going to cite Mendelssohn. I'm going to cite Don Demayev. I'm going to cite Hofner. All these people I'm going to talk about in the book, and I'm going to give their information in the bibliography. If you're going to take the step to move beyond summarizing and moving into arguing for a particular position, then you need to move beyond the introduction and make sure that you go to the secondary literature. You need to go read Isaac Mendelssohn's book from the 40s, I think, on slavery in the ancient Near East and in the Old Testament. You need to go read the different sections on slavery out of Westbrook's edited volume with the 22 different scholars that he has talking about the wider ancient Near East. You know, you need to go read these books and read these articles. Read Yoram, man, I can't remember the guy's last name now. Mishar's, I think it's his last name, book on who the Toshav is. You need to read that article and formulate your own thoughts. You need to read Meredith Klein's 3 articles on the Habiru and take notes on those things and really figure out what the strengths and what the weaknesses are of their different arguments. So what my 3 points that I have under here are: begin with the monographs that are on the topic. So when you have a book, a whole book like Isaac Mendelssohn's book on slavery in the ancient Near East, it's a full several hundred page book on slavery in the ancient Near East. Go read that. It's a topic. It's a book dedicated to that topic, a monograph dedicated to it. And it's going to give you a really good introduction, ostensibly. It'll give you all the different arguments and then his particular arguments and his evidence for it. And he's going to cite all the different people that are writing. Start with stuff like that. Then move on to the articles. The more articles tend to be shorter but much more specific. So they're going to talk about a particular aspect of slavery. So in Levinson's article on Leviticus 25 and how it turns Exodus 21 on its head, it's a very specific article. And so that you want to move into those secondarily. And then finally, you will often see that scholars will come together in like a symposium of sorts or a conference, and they'll all write an article on a particular topic. We talked about that in the Exodus video, the transdisciplinary approach to the Exodus in the Bible. I think it's roughly the title of that book. That's all these different scholars getting together, Egyptologists, ancient Near Eastern scholars, and writing about the Exodus. So that's where I would go. Okay, I'm going to pause and let Skylar give some of his reflections on all of the possible nonsense that I may have just said.
No, I think just like before, just like God, you are perfect in every way. Your intellect is just as strong as your beauty. And
we're 900 years older. Your age look as good. You're not.
No, I think you're right. I think overall what you're saying is right. I don't really, I'll be honest, I don't have really much to add to that. I wish I did.
No, but I think you do. So
yeah.
let's talk about it. Yeah. What's a topic? Let's just kind of walk through it here.
Okay.
Like, what's a topic that has come up recently in discussions that you have thought, man, I don't know. I suspect that you're wrong in what you're saying, but I don't know, and I'd like to go do more research on it. Can you think of something?
There was, no, that's not a good one. There was something recently that I've been told that I want to go look at some numbers. Oh, yeah. I will. What's funny was, what's his name from Talking Doctor? Really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarette smoker. And he was telling me that cigarettes don't cause harm at all,
Really?
right? Yeah, cigarettes don't cause harm. And he says that the black lung pictures that you see online are fabricated in a sense that they're not really lungs of people who had been smoking, basically. And I was like, that doesn't seem right.
Huh?
There's lots of evidence to support, I would imagine, medically, that smoking causes damage to your lungs. It seems like you inhale carcinogens, you smoke, that's not good for you. People die from inhaling smoke.
One might think.
Yeah, and but he was so interested in it, and I think I actually went and looked at the thing with the lung, and he had. Listen, I don't want to say there was something to what he was saying about the lungs. I'm not saying he was right about overall what he was saying, but there was something else, and I can't remember what it was. But there was something weird about the whole lung thing picture you see all the time, to where it's like it wasn't necessarily a human lung or something. I'd have to go back and look at it to tell you to be specific with it. But I guess that would be something recently that I'd heard, and I was like, well, that seems out there to think that cigarettes don't cause damage to your lungs.
Yeah, that one's tougher for me, but let's think about it. Like what could, because it's out of my field, but how could we do that? Let's just think principally here. How could we do that? So we'd want to go figure out who the experts are in the field. So one of the places that I might go is because I don't have access at the moment. Well, I guess I could, but let's assume we don't have access to a good library. If we got onto Google Scholar and typed in cigarette smoke,
or put dangers of cigarette
there you go, dangers of cigarette smoking, you're probably going to get a bunch of different articles, some of which are going to be like news articles. Some of them are going to be blog. I don't know if blog posts show up in Google Scholar, but you might have like a popular level book. But the ones that one of the things that I've noticed about scientific journal articles is when you have journal articles that have like 5 different authors, those are peer-reviewed authors, right? You can usually tell if there's an article that's been peer-reviewed. And those are the ones that I would want to start with. And I would want to look at some of them and see who are they citing, what is the study that's being done. Again, I don't have a science background, so this one's more difficult for me, but that's probably where I would want to go. But you know what? That we know so many people here on YouTube that we should be able to find. Is it Doc Savage? Is a scientist?
Savage,
yeah. Shoot him an email and say, hey, what are some good sources? Maybe not. Hey, Doc Savage, go do all the research in this and tell me the answer. But maybe, hey, Doc Savage, what are some good resources, some good places that I can start to try to get an idea? Who are some of the good scientists that talk about this?
There is a whole thing. So as we're talking, I'm Googling and kind of looking up this conspiracy theory about it's called the Black Lung Lie.
The BLL.
Yeah, it is BLL. That's right. And there's all types of theories that it might have been animal lungs. It could have been something else, but it wasn't caused by smoking. And it's just so strange. It's a strange idea to me. But I mean, why should I think that this is strange? I guess because, people don't vaccinate their kids now because they think it causes autism.
This is true.
Or there are people that are flat earthers that don't believe the earth is a globe. So I guess I really shouldn't be too crazily surprised about this kind of stuff. I'm almost interested in what attracts people to it. Like what attracts somebody to such I don't want to say what is disinformation, but so it attracts them to such. Do you think maybe part of it is the idea it's something unique and weird to them in a sense, to where hey, most of the planet thinks we're living on a globe ball. I know the truth. We're actually living on a flat surface.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that. Yeah, I think because I've been part of movements like that when I was younger, and I hate to say this, but didn't know any better. I read a book, and the book said, "Oh yeah, all the other interpretations of the New Testament are wrong. The mid-acts dispensational interpretation is actually the right one, and we're the only ones that know it. Everybody else is just dumb." And so, there you go. It was, and I would always feel sorry for the people that weren't mid-Acts dispensationalists, or those that were Acts 13 dispensationalists instead of Acts 9 dispensationalists, like what the right position was. I mean, come on, how obvious is that? And God forbid an Acts 28 dispensationalist position. I mean, look, Skyler, you and I both know that Acts 2 is nonsense, right? But I mean, Acts 28, come on. I mean, who could do that?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. Okay, Josh. Oh, Josh. So
I get 100 things. I'm trying to keep track.
No, it's good. So Jay, I just wanted to, I'm looking here in the side chat here. So Yami Yamizuki says you must read his dissertation in the Hovind voice. This must happen. I think Skylar, you're on that.
That was actually I thought about it as we were. I was like, this would be amazing in Ken Hovind's voice.
We're
on it. We'll do it.
Tim Smith says, what book of the Hebrew Bible do you think is the oldest? I'm hearing Jeremiah, Ezra, or Job. What do you think? Not Job. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. And if you're talking about when it was actually penned and not the tradition behind it, yeah, I don't want to actually. I mean, some of the prophets are older. Chronicles, is late, but some of the things that they're based on, yeah, I'd have to think about that. That's a good question, though, Tim Smith. Thank you.
Here's what I want to understand, folks out there who watch Dr. Josh and I want to know why I can have an argument with Jill, and then within 3 hours we have almost 700 views on that video. And then last night, Dr. Josh and I could have an amazing episode talking about cool stuff, and not nearly the amount. People say they hate Jill, but they sure do love to watch Trainwreck, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking through the comments of what's going on. That's why I got distracted reading through some of what these people are saying about Jill. Anyway, I'm sorry. We're getting off.
It's so difficult to predict. Like that video that we did singing the parody.
Yeah.
It's still, I don't think, still hasn't broken 1,000.
No.
Like, guys, hey, everybody watching, everybody that's going to watch this video, there is we should put a link in the description.
We put a link in the description.
But only because I want to see that go above 1,000. That's what I want to see. Skylar and I did a video, 2 parody videos on his channel, but one was I was singing Golden Ticket, but in a particular voice that people love and hate, I suppose. We've discussed it earlier. And Skylar put an awesome video behind it, and we thought it was just going to go off the charts. And like, no, I don't understand.
We'll have to definitely take portions of his Ken Hovind. We're not going to read the 102 pages of shit.
I'm sorry, his dissertation is only 102 pages.
Is that low? I don't know.
Okay, mine is not that big, and it's 580 some pages.
Yeah, it's 102. And that's with an introduction and all that kind of stuff in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Let me see about giraffes. Just skimming through him, looking for buzzwords or what he says.
Nice.
Anyways.
Let me see here. A couple more questions here. So Nick J says, Skylar Fiction, just a random ad. But would you guys please check out this channel and maybe reach out to him? He does his best to stay within scholarly scrutiny. Skylar, I don't know if you want to click on that and see who that is.
Yeah, I'm clicking on it now here. Let's see what it is.
Jay Pasick, while you're doing that, Jay Pasick.
That's modernity debate. I clicked on the wrong one. Sorry. Sorry. Let me see if we can find it. Is it who was that by? Who was the comment?
Nick J.
Nick J. Okay.
Jay Pasick asks, where the term miscarry, which is used in the New Testament translation in Numbers 5. The New Testament translation. Did you mean N-E-T? But some Christians say the use of that word isn't what it means. Yeah, there's difficulty. Numbers 5 is difficult. And actually, Jay, we'll get together and talk about this. There is some debate on how the Hebrew should be understood. But the things that we can say about it are, I think, with a fair amount of certainty, that the woman is suspected, obviously, of having slept, had an affair with a man, and she goes before the priest and she drinks a concoction that the priest makes by using water and dirt from the floor of the tabernacle, and mixes it together and calls down a curse, like a magical curse. If the woman had adultery, with the man when she drank the potion that her womb would extend. It's the wording there is complicated. It's probably euphemistic, but it definitely has something to do with her reproduction. So whether it means that she will be unable to bear children, or that the child that might be in her system will die, and she won't be able to bear children, I think it's probably, the text is probably not that specific. But I think by implication, the understanding is that it would almost certainly, at least in some cases, result in an abortive process. So yeah.
I wanted to say I clicked on the link, but it linked me to modern. Am I muted? Oh no, I'm not.
Nope,
muted.
you're good.
I clicked on the link, but it brought me to Modern Day Debates channel, which was the Jonathan Sheffield versus Richard Price or Robert Price.
Oh, is this the so?
That's the one that I know what Steve wanted to show us earlier, but I don't know if that was.
So it's down near.
Because it was literally the one that said, "Hey, check this out if you want to look at what you were talking about." But I think he might have just linked the wrong one.
Oh, this is a different one. I think it's below that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
If you if you keep going down,
I'll find it.
If
not, email it to us just in case we don't find it. So just email copy the link to us if you can.
So let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Jay Pasick says, did I miss any? No, Jay Pasick says, an alias fake name, put the golden rule link in the side chat. Thank you, alias. So Jay Pasick says, yep, I brought it up because I have had many Christian theists jump on me for reading that portion of Numbers 5 from the NIV. Yeah, I like the NIV. Oh, I see. My apologies. NT was meant to be NIV. Yeah, there's definitely justifiable reasons for taking that as miscarry. There's no question. It is a very viable possibility. But there's an article. It was a good article that was written on this that maybe we'll go through. We'll talk about some of the options. But yeah, one of I guess the conclusion that I came to after looking at it, just sort of at a cursory level, maybe for an hour or so, was it definitely has to do with the reproductive system. I think almost certainly has to do with the reproductive system in some part. And my conclusion was that while the text may not specifically be concerned with the baby that is, potentially in the womb, that, Nick J just put it there at the very bottom.
Okay, cool.
That it would, if this were a real thing that really happened in this actual circumstance, it would almost certainly at times cause an abortive process to take place. So
I subscribe to him. Study of Christianity is the name of the channel.
Okay.
It's got your little your symbol a little bit. It's somewhat similar to the digital Hammurabi symbol, actually.
Huh.
Similar, but not exact. Cool. Differences. Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to this guy.
Yeah, maybe we should have him on or something.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Try to make that happen.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, how long have we been going? Does it say?
Where are we at? I think we got to be at least over an hour. Let's see. Yeah, we are at an hour and 40 something minutes.
Yeah. If you guys have any last minute questions, go ahead and throw them in here. Otherwise, this has been really fun. If you haven't liked the stream, I've gotten away from saying this because I just assume it of you guys. I just assume that if you're here, you're going to hit that thumbs up button.
Just like it. What the hell else are you doing with your life? I mean, is it really that hard? You know, just ignore that little thumbs up button like it didn't happen? Just waiting to be pressed? It's its whole purpose in life.
And again, if you're here and you have not subscribed to Skylar Fiction, I don't know what you're waiting on. Leave the stream right now. It's worth it. Leave the stream right now and go subscribe and come back. Believe me, I'm not going to say anything that you'll miss. It's worth it to go subscribe to this channel. It's a lot of fun. Skylar and I do a lot of fun things there. And we're using OBS now. And even though, Skylar, I don't know if you saw this or not, but because I didn't sign out in Streamlabs from Digital Hammurabi, even though I put your stream key in, it still set up an anticipated stream on Digital Hammurabi. So people were in the side chat at 8:30 going, when's this going to start? When's this going to start? I had no idea. I felt so bad. So after we got off yesterday, I ended up doing a stream at 11 o'clock from 11 to a little after midnight, I
I
guess.
saw that. I was in bed, like I was trying to sleep, which was awful. I didn't sleep at all last night. It was terrible.
Oh man.
But I was in bed. You know, it's like one of those. You know when you're tired, but you just can't like let your mind rest.
Mm-hmm.
That was me last night, and I'm just literally miserable last night laying there. And I look over, I'm like, Josh got on. I should have came on last night. But yeah, it looked like it went good too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was a little tired, but it was good. I still feel like a dope because I still haven't figured out how to. Remember those things we were looking at where the alerts can come up when people subscribe or when people super chat?
We can get that figured out. Though.
I still can't get it figured out. So
I'll take a look, see if we can get what's going on.
But right.
Lots of stuff to come.
Yeah, man. A couple more quick questions, and then I think we'll wrap this up. Mm-hmm. Skylar, thank you for coming on.
Oh, please.
James O'Neill, was my question off topic? How can we learn what our bias is? Oh, sorry, James. Jamie, I didn't see that. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that when I think about what my bias is, and I claim, I always say this, I claim no expertise on, that sort of psychological aspect of this. But when I think about it from a research perspective, I think about what is my position that I hold and how much would it offend me if it were wrong. And I think that can tend to lead you down the path of, all right, I need to be very careful that if the thing that I'm holding now, it would really bother me, if it would hurt my ego, if it would hurt my pride, that could be problematic. That could cause you to hold to a bias. It's also possible to just sit back and think about how was I raised? What kind of a society did I grow up in? What are the things that I come to the text with? And I just think from a very practical standpoint, you will figure out what your bias is by honestly evaluating the opposing positions, the different positions to what you have. And I think if you can do that with an open and honest approach and sort of leave your pride, check your pride at the door and say, we're here for the truth, not for me to be right, we'll get a whole lot closer to setting aside your bias. But again, I think it's going to be interacting with other people, having them give you critique ultimately, and looking at other peer-reviewed sources. So that's a good question. Tim Smith, didn't Yahweh kill the baby from the unification of David and Bathsheba? Yes. And of course, Skylar, as you know, the common apologetic argument that I hear to this, which again is consistent, I think, with their worldview, I think it's sort of a way out, but nonetheless, is that God can do things that humans can't, and it's just.
And he can make humans do things
that
he tells them not to do in the first place. So, God. That's God.
But, I think that when we think about, and maybe we'll talk about this, when we think about the, there are texts that talk about other texts that deal that would be germane, I think, to the abortion issue, and maybe we'll do a stream about that because I think there are other biblical texts that would be germane to the abortion issue. So maybe we'll look. What do you think about that, Skylar? Maybe do an abortion stream.
Yeah, that's fine.
Not so much to talk about. I mean, we can. I wouldn't be able to speak much to the modern aspects of it, but there are passages that I think in the biblical text that deal with. The abortion issue, so maybe we'll do that. Alias Fake Name writes, go pick up some Chan dice. Thank you very much, Alias. It's our Teespring account. I don't call it merch. I refuse to call it merch. For those of you that know me, I call it Chan dice.
Chan dice.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, look, I know Skylar's probably want to get off and go do things with his family. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for everything that you do for the channel. Just here, support us. Again, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Go subscribe to Skylar's channel. And I just really appreciate you being here. And we will see you guys next time. Until next time, resist poor scholarship. You know the closing line, Skylar? Always ask. Do you know it?
How do you know that?
All right, let's try it again. That's good. Until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask.
How do you know that? Sorry.